Welcome to the Hiring on Demand Show. I'm Crystal, your friendly neighborhood hiring expert. And today I'm excited to bring to you my friend Shaun from Go Highlevel, which has been growing like wildfire. We know firsthand that in order to build a strong team that moves mountains with you and is not pulling you back, it takes a strong leader. So my goal for you today is to hear from the expert himself and be able to take some inspiration from it. So without further ado, Shaun, could you give us a little quick intro about yourself and what Go Highlevel is?
Yeah, sure. My name is Shaun. Nice to meet everybody. Co-founder of High Level, and we're like an all-in-one sales CRM marketing platform thing. Um, but I don't know if I'm an expert, so I apologize ahead of time if I don't sound like an expert. It's because I'm not, but I will try my best.
Well, I feel like you are because everything that you're doing, I feel like there are so many different pieces to it. And, whether it's you doing, a lot of the pieces yourself or hiring the right people in the right places to do it, like it takes a lot of people and there's so many moving pieces
It
in
does.
order to get where you are. I've been like going over this with myself and I'm like, man, like, are you like at billionaire status yet? Because I feel like Go High
No.
Level is like almost there. Are you like
Well, we're definitely big. I mean, we're serving a couple million users now. We've got about 800 team members, so
wow.
we're fairly scaled. Although we're continuing to scale, which is awesome. But I think what's cool is we've been able to do it in a radically different way than a lot of our competitors. We've really thought a lot about how to help our customers make money almost first and foremost, and how we're partnering with them as part of growing their businesses. And I think by doing that in all ways, whether it's allowing people to white label the product, allowing people to resell the product, whatever it might be, we really try to put ourselves in the shoes of our customer and make it so that if they win, we win, but if they lose, we lose, and so it aligns those incentives. And I think that has really made our business different in that way. That's really spoken to people and
Yeah.
allowed us to grow a lot faster.
I love that. And I think that's why I like switched over to you guys. Originally, like before, I've been with you guys for a few years now, agency model, white label. But we came from another software where it was so hard to manage multiple clients, like because we help them with their hiring process, growing their team, like that whole onboarding process, their training. And to do that on a lot of other softwares, it was hard because it was like updates were one on one. It wasn't like you could do a massive update and push it out to everybody. And then you
Totally.
guys keep innovating and adding more stuff and more stuff. So it's like we've slowly been able to like eliminate other softwares and kind of put it all into one. And it's powerful. And I think just that ability itself to make those snapshots, make that automation, push it out to them. So they're not struggling to build it all or get help.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that,
100%.
but there is a lot of pieces when it comes to tech and a lot of updates. Like how do you guys like teach your team on all the updates, like so everybody's caught up? Like how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so we have lots of systems that are really well organized to do this. Now, caveating there that we're all humans, so we all make mistakes, and some people understand things more than others, but a lot of it's about organization. So we have different levels of support, and then within the higher levels, we actually break them out into product groups so that those people can really learn one aspect of the system. So that as people come in, first and foremost, we try to make things as easy as possible and all of that. But if they sort of person can't figure it out, and then it goes to level one, and level one can't figure it out, the level two isn't just a more experienced rep. They're also somebody who specializes in that area, so that way we can get that answer back as fast as possible. But then we also do a lot of other things. So like if something every time there's something that gets to level two, we almost see that as like a, oh, that shouldn't have happened. So then that gets flagged to a product manager who also owns that area on the software and the product design side. And then the question is, okay, how do we make that not happen next time, right?
Yeah.
And it's you can't do that sort of universally, can't get rid of all things, but you can certainly learn a lot and you can make a lot of improvements. So it's about sort of creating those connections where you're not siloing off your people, so that product and support are almost a unit around at different aspects of the product. So they're always working together to make it better.
Nice. I know I love that. Because I think one of our other questions that we were going to have was like, how do you handle, issues that come and get them all up? So I think that kind of answers that question. Um, When it came originally to getting started, was it
Yeah.
just you and your business partner? Like, how did you start Go High Level?
Yeah, it's just me and my business partner initially. And, we were working initially directly with small businesses. And our big challenge there was, we had come out with sort of version one, which is very simple. And we showed it to a bunch of people and they loved it and they bought it. And then 2 weeks would go by and then they would cancel. And it was very confusing to us because, we would sort of get on the phone and say, well, I don't understand because, like we showed you the thing, you said you liked it. We didn't like, did we not deliver what we showed you? And they're like, oh no, you totally did. But we just don't have time to learn it or to implement it and this sort of thing. And as a software engineer, that's the worst thing to hear because you just sort of
Yeah.
feel like I built the thing you told me to build and now you say you can't use it. What the heck? But what was great for us and very lucky is we got a call from a marketing agency and they sort of had a co-customer with ours in common. And they called us and we got on a call with them and they were really just trying to understand what we were doing for the client. But what we learned really was from that whole thing is that it was the agency who was actually doing all the technology implementation plus the services and tying it all together. And in reality, behind the scenes of all of these really successful small businesses were agencies helping them do these things. And so that's when we said, oh, wait, let's help that agency if we want to help the small businesses. And that's really what has brought us to where we are today. Stop, we learned early on that, great small businesses are great at what they do, but that doesn't mean they're great at, sales and marketing software.
That's so true. I find like a lot of customers that come to us, like they're not very techy. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of like education that we have to do on our side in order to like tie it all together. So identifying that early on, I think that's it. So that's how you guys shifted to kind of more bringing in the agencies so that can solve that. That's so smart. So how did you guys dive into making your first set of hires when you guys just first started?
I think, it's kind of like everybody. You start with the people that you know, and you start with the needs that come up and kind of hit you in the face, right? So our first big issue was support. We wanted to. I love doing the onboarding calls, and I don't mind doing the support, but at some point you just run out of time.
Yeah.
And so the very first person we hired was somebody on support, and it's actually somebody I had a personal connection with, had worked at another company doing support, so I kind of knew who they were and that they were good and all that stuff. And then over time, that's just kind of how we've done it. And then, as we've grown, obviously you get into more traditional hiring processes and that sort of thing. But one of the things that doesn't change, I would say, and it's something to watch out for as you get bigger, is the culture that really built you initially is just as important no matter at what phase of the company you're at. And the second you start to depart from that, I think you get into a lot of trouble, especially as you get bigger, because the problem is you lose visibility in parts of your organization. And if somebody
Yeah.
is, and oftentimes decisions being made, if they're being made around the right culture, that is the thing that matters most. It's honestly not even if they're the right decision or it's a good decision, bad decision, works out, doesn't work out. The question really is, why'd you make that decision? And you really want to hear, well, I made it because I thought it would, it was whatever your culture is. For us, I thought it would really help the customer. I thought it was the right thing to do for them, that sort of thing. Ultimately, that is the thing you want to hear, even if it blows up and you're like, well, it didn't actually work out the way you thought it would, but at least you tried. And when you tried, you did it for the right reasons in the right way. That's really what is so important when making a hire. It's culture, culture, culture.
How do you guys manage culture now with around 800 employees?
I think it's leadership comes from the top. So, it's about showing that you are present and that you are willing to roll up your sleeves and do any job at any time. And I think for me, it's, I show up on a lot of Zoom calls with a lot of customers and also a lot of team members who don't expect me to be there. And I think that leaves an impression on people. And when you're willing to do, whatever the hardest job is, if you're willing to do that consistently, nobody on the team could say, well, he doesn't do it, so why, I don't need to. And what you'll find is maybe your visibility is only so deep in your organization, but you got to realize that everybody looks up. So what happens is whatever it is that you do will filter all the way down. Because even if they don't get it directly from you, they'll get it from somebody who does get it directly from you. And so that's why I think you can never take your foot off the gas on really trying to represent the culture that you think everybody else should model after.
So do you guys pair that with as well, like some lessons or like intro, like to the company, like, hey, here's our culture, our values. Like, How does,
Yeah,
like,
we
in a
have all that. We have
nutshell?
all of that stuff. We have the mission statements and we have the trainings. We have all hands meetings and stuff like that. And I think all of that is fantastic. So don't get me wrong. I just find that it's very hard to. It's sort of like if you've ever gone someplace that was just like out of this world cool, like a lot of times like foreign travel and stuff, and then you come home and you try to explain it to people. It's just hard to explain it. Like
Yeah.
unless you were standing on that corner, unless you could smell the smells and see the sights and feel the feelings, it's just hard to explain, right? And so I think what's super important is on the back of all of that stuff that people can see tangible examples every single day. And they're not going to see every example, but they're going to see some, and that's what matters. And that I think is why you have to be on your game all the time because you can't be like a different person one week and then switch because you feel like that everybody saw your example last week. No, that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be a continual thing, and also you need to remind people why that part of your culture is important. And the best thing you can do is live it.
Right. What would that 2 week training process, like if you, and if you don't want to dive into it, that's cool, but
Oh yeah.
what would like a sample 2 week training process look like universally?
Well, mm, every role is different. But let's just say your frontline support. So the first week is all going to be mechanics, like, well, what's the software do, and how do you help people, and what are the features, and where do I click on to do this and this and this and this. And then the second one is as fast as we can get you shadowing somebody else, right? Because seeing the job, being part of it, and then slowly having you take over parts of that call, very important, right? Because mechanics are great, but you really need to understand. I mean, our big thing is like always try to see it from the customer's perspective, right? Um, and realize that they're out in the world trying to help somebody, and your job is to help them help that person. So what are you doing to put yourself in their shoes? And I think that and I think our customers are so awesome in that way. They do a great job describing how they're living it. So I think for me, it's about having those people be on those calls as soon as possible, even just to hear the use cases or hear the real life scenarios that they are actually trying to impact.
Do you add that with any quizzes or,
Yeah, there's
scorecards for
no
making
actually
sure if they're failing?
what's cool now is so we just rolled out certifications, and this is like a customer certification. We originally thought of this as if you want to become a high-level certified partner, you go through this certification, right? But then what some smart person that wasn't me in my organization figured out was, well, if this is so great for external parties, why is this not great for internal parties? And so that's exactly what we're doing now. We're putting all of our internal people through the same certification that we do our external people. And our external what I've long loved about the design of this, which I also had nothing to do with, but just shows the quality of team members, is we fail people all the time because there's a live proctored exam at the end because we don't want you to be able to cheat. So anybody who actually has a certification, we really want it to mean something, right?
Yeah.
And so we do this with our employees. And so you don't get to go out until you actually pass. You cannot go out and actually serve customers. And and if you don't pass, within a reasonable period, you're probably not a good fit for the organization. So it's really cool to now use the same standards externally and internally. So we now put people through this certification program.
I love it. I feel like we've kind of used some of those pieces and we've kind of engraved it for like their company, the companies that we work with into memberships. So we took it to where they, create a 2 week digital online process mixed with an
Yep.
in-person where they have somebody kind of shadowing with
Perfect. We do
them.
the same thing. Yep. That's exactly how we do our certification program.
Yeah, and then we kind of tie it with some activities and the quizzes,
Mhm.
kind of using that, but for usually service-based companies. So whether it's like
There
a
you go.
cleaning company, handyman. So that's what we've kind of tied it into, but in the
Totally.
software, all in one, right?
Perfect. Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah. So we use that same mechanism. We use the same quizzes and the memberships and all of that. And then we do the same like you said, like at the end, we just say, okay, now you're live and in person. Let's make sure you can really do this, not and you're not off Googling it or whatever.
Yeah, we added to ours too at the very end. It's like a scorecard. Like every single day, like the trainer has a scorecard and they if they fail on like values, culture, morals, like how they like because it's hard to assess if they're actually a good person. Like somebody could
Totally.
be talking, they could be great like online, on paper, whatever, but when you talk to them, they're just not good. Like they
Mhm.
bring the culture down, the company down. It's like those are the things that we look for as well in the scorecard, as well as performance. And if they fail within 2 weeks, then we get them out. We want to get
There
them
you go.
out and
See?
replace them.
That's
Um,
awesome.
how do you guys manage workloads and deadlines with your team?
Well, it depends. Again, it all depends on what the teams are. On the success and support side, there's really strict KPIs around how long it takes to get back on to a customer on a ticket, to resolve an issue, that kind of thing. And then down to the person, so you have to look at KPIs from two directions there. So one is like you can have a person doing an amazing job not hitting their KPIs because, well, maybe they're hitting your KPIs, but that ticket they're working on is not. And it's not because of anything they did. Maybe you haven't staffed appropriately. You need to add more team members there. So we always look at it from that direction. And then on the dev side, what we're more interested in there is we plan out about on a quarter by quarter basis. And the idea there is not so much like if you've ever tried to create strict deadlines for engineers, you probably have learned this, but it's really hard to do that. But what matters more is did that person show up today and do their best? And if they did, there's really not much else you can ask them to do. And honestly, that goes for success and support as well. And just over time, you kind of learn what that looks like, and you KPI around it. And really, the KPIs are less about exacts for the person. It's just more about trying to make sure that they're kind of doing their level best. And if they are, gosh, it's we try not to get too crazy about that because that's what we care about. Like, wow, this person showed up, they're doing a great job. We do KPI very strictly around the actual the resolution times because that tells us again how is the customer viewing this experience, right? And if they're viewing it as yeah, sure, when I talked to so and so they were great, but the thing's still not fixed, it doesn't really matter, right? But we sort of take that as a personal company responsibility, less of a person responsibility, because we feel like most of the time when you have a great, you're constantly looking at people, and if you have a bad person, you're getting rid of them and all of that. But holistically, if you're not hitting your KPIs, it's probably a staffing issue, less of a person issue.
So using that, but what else do you use as well to identify like when there's a need for more staff in a certain area?
Oh, it's really about wait times, response
Okay.
times, resolution times. I mean, it's just time, right? Like we have very strict targets on how long it's supposed to take to resolve certain issues at certain levels. And if we bust those, and we also, I mean, these days we forecast way out. So we already know based on we have X number of trials coming in today, we're going to need to hire Y number of people, and we know how long they take to train. We know how, on average, how many of them don't make it. We project way out, and now we can get, it's a good problem to have. We can get big spikes in trials, so we can get our projections thrown off. But we basically readjust those projections now weekly in order to make sure we're as close as possible to never getting behind on those numbers.
That is awesome. I love that. Looking at the projections of trials. Do you think how would you say like a house cleaning company, solar company could look at their leads or their numbers in some which way to kind of project their
I mean,
future
it's the
hires?
same thing, right? I mean, you obviously you always optimize from the top of the funnel down, but let's just assume for a second that your sort of your traffic to lead to customer conversion funnel is perfect, which no one's ever is, but let's just say it's really good and you have some certainty there. You should be able to then dial in all of the staffing from there, right? So you should know, based on the people coming through. And again, you have to back into it because you have to realize like there's lag. Hiring is one of those things where you can't hire somebody today and have them immediately be really good tomorrow. And every position is different, obviously. Like the more technical roles, even on like software engineering, we can bring people in with lots of great software engineering experience, but it really takes them 6 months to become really good in our world, right? Because there's so much institutional knowledge they need to kind of bring to come and learn in addition to just the skills that they have, right? So you got to learn, you got to figure all that out. And the same thing even goes for success and support. Your first day on support, you're not that great, I mean, you've gone through the training, and yes, you've been on a lot of calls, but you're still not going to we just know you're not going to do that great, and that's okay. It's not your fault. You will get better, and so
Yeah.
we have to back into all those timelines. And so I think you could do that in any business. I mean, you should, because I think fundamentally that's where most people will get let down, right? When they call and they spend all their time and they're ready to spend the money, and then they're told that you can't meet them on a reasonable timeline to deliver that thing because you're just not staffed appropriately.
Yeah, I feel like something that we see that's pretty common is like we can get people fully staffed pretty fast, and they have like these big crazy numbers that they want to hit for their hiring goals, and I don't think they realize sometimes once they hit that hiring goal, their marketing can't always keep up with the goal that they had. And so they can't necessarily keep all those workers busy. Have you guys ever came across something like that where you had, too many workers and you guys had to like do some specials, promos, marketing in some kind of way in order to get that back up? Or have you not had
No.
that? Well, that's a good thing not
Yeah,
to
we've never
have.
had that problem. But again, but we've had the opposite problem, right? So we've definitely gotten into situations where we underhired. And so I think for us, and for us, that was actually a really terrible thing. In fact, my push on my people is more to overhire, not underhire, because the issue I find is that, if you overhire, you tend to be able to kind of like ease, like absorb some of that stuff. I mean, maybe for some period of time you're going to take a hit, and that stinks and so forth. But that puts the pain on the company. But if you do the other thing, what you do is it's not like you're even hurting for our business, it's not even like you're hurting the new customer, you're hurting all customers because now everyone is experiencing that same bottleneck and everyone's saying, what the heck, I can't get any support. And it creates a really negative reputation. So I almost think it is better to overhire. But again, you don't, in every business, you should be able to project these things. You really ought not to even start with a hiring projection, in my opinion. You should build up from your marketing, not build up, not go backwards into your marketing. I think that's a tough thing to do because forecasting demand or creating demand is generally the harder thing to do than staffing.
Yeah, it's something I feel like mentally I have to kind of like break some of these mindset things that when people they come to me because I feel like they want to franchise out, they want to grow, they want to go to so many cities, but they think it happens a lot faster. And so they staff more and they're like, yeah, it's just going to be easy. And then it's not as easy.
I wish that would be fantastic, but yeah, no, yeah, I think, I would say, it's it's different for every business, but I do think that, really, again, from the top of the funnel down. So staffing is farther down the funnel than new trials or new leads or new customers, right? I mean, new website visits, all this stuff. Marketing is at the top of the funnel, and so you gotta start there and walk down and project out. And your funnel will, your funnel will also project forward, and you can figure out the growth from there. But that should work into the staffing model. It shouldn't work up like that.
What would you recommend for like a new business owner as far as like marketing? Where would you say like they should start? Because I hear some people talk about SEO, but then SEO is a long game. Is somebody who's really
Terrible.
looking to like get income as they're growing, what would be some things that you would recommend to them?
Are these local businesses?
Yes,
Google ads. I
Google
mean,
Ads.
I mean, yes, they cost money, but welcome to the world. I mean, at the end of the day, consumers for predominantly, consumers search, right? And most service businesses are not want tos, they're have tos. And if you want to know where most plumbers are being found on a daily basis, it's Google. I promise you that. And yes, there are other advertising mechanisms and everything else, but if you don't have that's the biggest stream or river of leads and potential businesses, or I mean, potential consumers every day. And if you don't have a lock on that, I think all that other stuff is periphery. You need to start right there. And I mean, if I was going to run a business, that's what I would do. And you need to budget for it, and you need to put it into your numbers and everything else. And this is actually where having software that can do, lead nurturing, so capture, nurture, close, is critical, because every single person you're walking into the door as a lead is going to cost you money. And so you need to maximize that conversion, right? But it's still the right place to be. I mean, I don't know, especially if you're a new business, you're not going to have reviews yet. And SEO, I mean, for better or for worse, SEO has gotten a lot easier, in my opinion, for local business. SEO is no longer how many pages and that you can build and this and that. It's more about how are your reviews, because every consumer is now being trained by Google. Look, go to Google Business Profiles, look down. We're gonna give you everybody within a radius in a particular area, and we're gonna give you the reviews, and we all read them, we all look at them. And if you're a brand new business, it's hard for you to jump to that level. So you should be running ads. But even as you, and that's the other thing. This is where your funnel is so important. It's capture, nurture, close. Do a great job, which you know how to do, and then make sure that you get a review out of every single person you talk to, and so that you're growing on the review side. You do those two things and you'll do quite well. at the end of the day. Maybe that means for the first couple of years, your profit margins are going to be less because you're going to have less of your revenue coming in off non-ad based stuff. But that's okay. That's how new businesses work. And over time, you will continue to find ways to do things like getting your customers to recommend you to their friends and family. And you can run campaigns that help incentivize that and so forth. And it's cheaper than Google, but that's kind of how a brand new business should think about rolling out.
Yeah, I know. I started to notice that once people are fully staffed, they needed help with a lot of these areas. And we started to eventually help them with all the other things. And I loved how you guys came out with, all the connecting your Google My Business, connecting all the lead platforms, the reviews, being able to have the nurture, the automation just built into the system. I think we've really tried to kind of tie that onto it. But I think them still understanding the fact that you got to spend some money on like Google ads in order to get things in there to
Yep,
make everything else run. And then you can hire and
100%.
all the other stuff kind of starts there at that top though. I think it's important for the business owners to know that. Even though you have some resistance towards, I don't want to do that yet. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want to do it either, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that's not how it works. And they could just ask themselves as consumers when they need something they don't do for themselves, where do they go? And I guarantee you, if it's local, it's Google.
Right. And you're starting at the top. The top. You don't scroll
Yeah.
down far on Google before you actually pick one.
Well, and yeah, and again, to be, even if I'm just thinking as a consumer, to be fair, I mean, somebody who has a lot of like, if I don't like the ads and I'm rolling down, like, you know, for most people, it's not about in-depth knowledge of the service. Like, I don't have time to learn plumbing or and the art of plumbing and what makes it great. I just don't. I need you to I need this plumber to come in and achieve an outcome for me very quickly. And all I need to know is that they've done that before, and the reviews do a great job of that in general. And they tend to show me the right person, and I pick that person. They come in, they do the job. I'm happy because so was the other zillions of people who've already reviewed them. It's just that simple. It's a transactional relationship. And so I think most businesses need to realize that and really kind of attack it like that. SEO, in general, I mean, I think unless you're serving some kind of national niche product, spending a lot of time on pages and descriptions and this and that, it's just not where you want to start. It's really kind of a tertiary game. If you can't run Google Ads as a local service business and make money, you're not doing it right.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Knowing your numbers is kind of like what it comes down to. Like you can't
Yeah.
just blow money at it and not track it. You got to make sure that, you're understanding your cost per customer acquisition and knowing if you need to tweak some stuff. I think that's important. And
100%.
having the insights to the analytics all into the platform make it that much easier on doing it.
Well, and most people who run Google Ads, when you ask them like if they had a bad experience, if you really walk that down, it's because they don't realize that once you run the ad, that's awesome, but that's like step one. You've got to be able to then I see an ad, it has a title, it said something. I click it. I better go somewhere where that title on the ad matches the title on the page. And then right in front of me needs to be a big red button that says like, take an action, take the action. I like get a quote, book an estimate, whatever. It's a funnel and it needs to be incredibly simple to get that consumer to take an action. And this is where agencies are so important because this is where I think their experience really helps them, which is it's like, hey, listen, this is why you have such a bad impression of Google. If they were so terrible, just FYI, 99% of the revenue wouldn't come from advertising. It does because it works. It's just you don't understand. You can't run an ad and have money pop out. You have to capture, nurture, close that lead, and you got to bring them through that funnel. And if you don't, of course, it's not going to work out for you. You're just paying for clicks. You got to turn those clicks into actual captured leads and then on to customers.
Yeah. Now, if we were to do like a short version of lead generation for a new agency,
Yeah.
how would that shift for you? Like on the recommendation?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, a new agency, I would tell you the answer is simple. Call your local chamber of commerce and BNI, join them, put together a presentation, which by the way, if you don't want to create one, we have one in the help docs for you. Nice. If you go to help.go Highlevel and search BNI, but you literally just show up and you just drop value. You say, look, here are all the things that you need to do as a small business to make sure that you're ready to go. You need missed call text back. You need a chat widget on your website, right? You need to be able to text out payment links to people. You need to be able to capture leads on your website, but also automatically text them out and get them to book an appointment and just show off all the ways that businesses can really market and advertise themselves for almost nothing. And more importantly, how they can close quickly on the leads that they do get. And I think what you'll find is if you do that in the right way, which is you can't say, and if you give me your credit card right now, I can sign you up. Like if you're not pitching people, if you're really showing them things they can do, you will show that you are an expert in what you do. You're going to be giving them free value. And I think at the close of that presentation, you'll find a lot of people walk up to you and ask if they could pay you to do what it is you just showed them. And I think that's how you start your agency, but also grow your agency. And then over time, you just rinse and repeat that. Most people can get hundreds of local clients off the back of that strategy in a couple of years if they're willing to do the work, and then create a very successful business if they're using the SaaS model that we promote to kind of scale that up.
Yeah. And I feel like I feel like you guys, as far as like the marketing that I've seen, I have not ever seen too many crazy ads like for you guys. I've seen more on like affiliate promotion. I feel like eventually, by having great product and stuff, I feel like, that affiliate thing is that next phase kind of going into is using it like to the
Absolutely,
best of your
absolutely. Well,
ability.
we're like a software platform, right? So we don't really think of ourselves as coaches or marketers. We really like to focus on features, and we work with our customers, and our customers are great marketers. So we don't try to pretend to be what we're not, and we try to find ways that, again, we can align ourselves with the interests of our customers. And so some of our customers are great coaches in their own right, and they speak and they have a lot of experience speaking to a particular audience. So we would rather empower them to serve their audience better versus trying for us to somehow jump in front of them and say, oh, look over here. We know how to coach you, Mr. and Mrs. Plumber or Mr. and Mrs. Agency. That's not who we are, what we know how to do. So we don't try to pretend.
And I love how you guys brought it down to where we could offer that to like our customers as well. So if it is, a service-based business, that they can now offer an affiliate program for their customers, like directly within the
100%. And in
software.
fact, I'll give you the quick scoop here. Next quarter, which kicks off in 15 days, we're actually going to come out with an extension of that that we're going to call a referral program. Because while I will say the affiliate program that we have today works beautifully for this, we also find that nomenclature and naming and words matter. So we're going to come out with something called a referral program that will make it even more obvious and slightly easier for small businesses to utilize this with their customers. Because for me, what I would say is, let's say you're a small business, you're running Google ads, like I just said, you're putting in a year of this stuff, and low profit margins, but you're consistently picking up customers. The first customer that walks in the door is a referral source. And you need a system to take that person and incentivize them to talk to their friends and family about how great you are. And the second you start doing that, you're moving away from having to pay Google for that. And eventually this is the math equation on this. And I hate to get too crazy with math, but if you think about it, if each person that walks in even just recommends one other person to your business, start doing the math, and you can very quickly see how it's not a linear, it's not like a line. It actually slopes up like this, almost like a rocket ship, because it just compounds on itself, and you can actually grow any kind of business off of this compounding idea, whether it's local or national. And it's the way that I wish everybody would grow their businesses. After they started getting a little bit of a lead in customer flow from ads, immediately that very first person, they're getting them to go out and say, hey, I got a special from the HVAC company I just used, and you can only get it from me. And do you guys didn't you say last week that your furnace is making a funny noise? Well, here's 20% off if you use these guys, right? Things like that drive huge results.
What would you recommend be like a good promo as far as like a referral for a service-based company?
Well, so if you think about a service-based company, the thing that they can do, so it depends on the service. So there's one-time service and recurring services. Now the recurring, the cheapest thing that any service business can give away is service, right? Because they have a cost, and then they have they have a markup on that. So their cost is lower than their markup. So as opposed to giving away cash, that is the cheapest thing you can give. So if you have something like a med spa or something where you have sort of a recurring person, I would immediately seek to give I would try to give free service, right? Because that's the cheapest thing you can give away. I'd even say that for non-recurring, and I'd think about something that maybe isn't standard or isn't common. Like if you're an HVAC person, I would even think, gosh, could I do something like, I'll give you your next year's cleaning for free or something. Even if you push out in the future, you got to find the mental switch where you can get people excited. So be careful.
Yeah.
If you think it's valuable, that's lovely, but it doesn't matter what you think. It matters if it's going to get that person excited. but try that. The other, and then if that doesn't work though, let's say like you're like, no, they won't take the whole free thing down the road. What you need to do then is think about cash. So you need to think, okay, what percentage of that sale could I give away if that person were to bring something in, right? And then say, hey, if you know somebody who needs their furnace replaced, I'll give you, $200 of that service job as just cash for the recommendation, right? And you find that right line between how much money and that referral, and I'm telling you, magic will happen.
I love that because I've seen some business owners when they think of like the referral, I think they have like some cap in their head of like $35. And
Yeah.
it's not really more than that. It's not like a free service, or it may not seem as valuable to somebody who's trying to take up on that referral or to
Oh,
actually
it's
get them
terrible,
to do
terrible. I
it.
mean, it's really simple. You better pay me enough to get off the couch, and if you can't do that, no thanks, I'm not doing it. And even if you do give away a free service, by the way, you really need to quote it in the retail price. $200 of free med spa services. And the great thing is that should cost you half that, right? But it's still what they would have paid for those same services had to walk in the door. It's not, it's a totally legit way to do it. But that's the whole point. You need to give it in a dollar amount that gets that person excited. And I think that's the right answer, for everybody. And I think, again, you could even do it as, if that person, let's say the HVAC thing, you can say, hey, I'll knock $200 off your last bill kind of thing, if you can do it in a way where they haven't paid you yet or something like that. But again, that dollar amount is a lot. $35 gets no one to do anything ever. So don't do $35. I mean, I think most people should just ask themselves, would I do that for $35? And if you're being honest, the answer is heck no. I'm not doing that for $35. What a waste of my time. Remember, you're asking people to do more than just take an action. You're asking people to take their reputation, right? And rep you on their reputation. That is a big ask. So just try to find a way and to meet them with respect on that. And I think that really is about paying a certain dollar amount that is high enough to feel respectful.
Yeah. Then if that customer even comes into like a reoccurring customer, it's like they're making 10x
Precisely.
whatever that was,
Precisely. That is
without
exactly the point. In
having,
fact, recurring businesses, you're high if you don't do this, right?
yeah.
You're nuts. This is where you should be giving away $100, $200 as fast as you can, because if you break even off that first giveaway, you need to be looking at LTV, lifetime value, for that client. And again, I always think if people really sat down and did the math and looked at how much money do you pay Google, back to those Google ads, how much money are you paying Google for that customer? My bet is most people, it's hundreds of dollars a customer. So that's true, and you can give away half that. You can give 25% less than that. You're still money ahead, right? And who would you rather give it to? Would you rather give it to Google or Facebook or your own customer? What a
Yeah.
glorious thing to do. You gave money to your own customer and you got more customers. What a lovely world that would be for all of us.
Yeah, and they might get even more excited and share it to more of their other friends.
Imagine that. And there you go. It sends it self-propagate, doesn't it? Because they can say, they give it to their friend and the friend takes the deal, and then they let their friend in on secret. Did you know that if you know anybody, and here's the thing, right? A lot of ads are about that. We always talk about targeting. So the funny part about it is, a lot of times the targeting becomes self-propagating as well, because the person who comes in and uses that service, they tend to know other people like them. So instead of paying Google and Facebook to try to figure out what their food choices are, or if they use med spa services or they don't, or if they like facials or they don't, or whatever, guess what? People who get facials or get their nails done know other people who get their nails done, generally speaking.
Yeah,
So they do all the targeting for you. It's just beautiful.
for sure. I know we're running out of time almost. Do you have a little bit more time for about
Yeah, sure.
one or
Fire
two more
away. I've got
questions?
15 more minutes.
Cool, awesome. I know you guys are smashing new releases and new features all the time. And I know in order to get there,
Yeah.
everything has to be running smoothly. Can you touch a little bit about, how you guys look at quarterly planning? Like what would, that kind of look like if we're trying to do something? Like what would that look like?
Yeah, so we call it the skateboard model, and we're pretty serious about it. So the way we think about this is, we only plan a quarter in advance, and the biggest reason is because we listen to our customers. So we know the world is moving quick, and we want to move quick. So 3 months is as long as it's going to take for us to get out any feature And the idea is really simple. You ask people what they want, and they're going to give you the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to tell you like, I want a fish that's this big, right? But you start with one that's this big. And the reality is we call it the skateboard model because most people say, I want a race car. And that sounds great. I want a race car too. But before we get started with the race car, here's a skateboard. And most people look at it and they're like, I thought I asked for a race car. And you're like, you did, but hold on. Can you just try the skateboard and see what happens? Now, don't get me wrong. Most people try the skateboard and they say, well, that's cute, but the next thing I need to see is this and this to use it. And that's awesome because guess what you got? You got feedback that's actual. That's lovely. But then there's always this weird one person who gets on the skateboard and it's like, wait a second, you know what? This actually works great. Thanks. And they skate right off into the sunset. And you just got a satisfied customer, and that's lovely. So it's really about allowing you to get something out into the world when it's imperfect and it's not, everything people want, but turns out it's useful to someone. And if nothing else, if not a single person uses it, you'll get feedback. The opposite is, and we see this way too much, people say, oh, you want a race car? I'll see you in a year. And that's exactly what happens. They go off into the garage and a year later, they come out and they're like, ta-da! And people are like, wait a second. I wanted an F1 race car. This looks like a NASCAR. Uh-oh, you just wasted an entire year, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of going back to the drawing board, it's about rapid iteration, right? It's not saying you don't release things that are broken. You don't release things that are like, that are junk. You're releasing something that is fully functional and very smooth, but it just has a heck of a lot less of the extra add-on bells and whistles so that you can see what people think before you keep killing yourself to make it better and making sure that you're doing it the way they want.
So how do you guys take that, idea of what everybody's wanting and how do you narrow it down to like what you should actually focus on and get that into implementation?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we talk to people. So we have product managers these days who focus on specific features. They go out and they look at every other product out there and what else is on the market? How does it work? And we go back to our customers. We say, hey, who do you use right now for that? Right? Who do you serve with that? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What's the most important? Like, walk me through the use case. Like, show me what you're doing right now. And what we do is you do 100 of those, and all of a sudden you'll find the commonalities, right? And so you start with, okay, what is the most basic? What is the skateboard version of this? And we build that out. And we say, listen, you got 45 days to build this out and get it out in, and sometimes it stretches to 60 or 65, 75, and then goes into QA, and boom, by the end of the quarter, it's out. We'll have a big feature or two out here in 15 days. That same concept, skateboard model, and then once it's out, you give it to people, and then they tell you what they don't like about it, and just kind of iterate. And for us, we use votes. We have a public ideas board. Customers vote on it, etc. But any business can use this idea. It's just about I think when I talk to people, it's always they're just so scared to start because they're so scared to fail, or they're so scared to do it wrong, or so scared for it to be imperfect. But the reality is it's going to be imperfect no matter what. Yeah. So the sooner you get started, the sooner you're going to get to a place where you're going to get good at.
I totally agree. I think everybody, especially even us agencies, when we come to building something too, I think, we can kind of get caught up in our heads too of like, is it okay to release now? Or like, do we need to like continue to try it out, make some kinks, just the never ending circle that of this what ifs and if this and if this and kind of getting that baseline. I think there is a fine line with being able to be okay with that skateboard model and being able to say, okay, that is good enough, let's do it. Like,
yeah, 100%.
How do you guys take that skateboard model once you guys have identified it and break it into projects for I'm assuming for it's that specific product team. So are the product managers the one who break it out into smaller pieces for the rest of the team?
Yeah, so they are like CEOs of their products.
Okay.
So my expectation of all of them is they know way more about whatever than I do. So, if it's the social media person, and the way they come to know about this, by the way, isn't because they're like geniuses or they just go out on the internet and read stuff. They just talk to a lot more customers about that one thing every day, all day. And again, we have a public ideas board. They look at the ideas board. They look at the people who post all the ideas in the comments and they contact them and they get on Zoom calls like this with them. And they ask, hey, I saw you post this idea. What is it all about? Can you tell me why it's important? And then they use their good judgment and common sense to order that up. And then they're all KPI'd around a product adoption. And it's a simple rule. Like if I say like, why did this feature go out instead of that feature? It needs to be because we believe, or based on customers, that if we did that feature first, that more people would use it. And then we just look how many people were using before and how many people are using it after. And did it go up? Did it go down? Did it go sideways? And we go from there. And it's a little art, it's a little science. You get it right sometimes, you get it wrong sometimes, but on balance, works really well.
Is there any meeting cadence that kind of gets set up from that product manager for the rest of their team to make sure that they're hitting it by the end of the quarter?
Oh, absolutely. So product managers meet, they have daily stand-ups with every single one of their team members to check in. And each stand-up can be done differently. So some people will like in-person stand-ups, in which case we try to tell them to do it like once every 3 days or once a week, because at some point you have to let engineers write code.
Yeah.
Some people do it, sort of do a combo where they'll ask people to sort of like put into Slack what they've done on that day, and then they meet with them sort of like, weekly. And then the other thing that we overlay on this is we now have product-centric town halls. And the idea is if you're a customer of ours and you want to know where stuff's at, you actually get on a call once a month. The product manager is there, and so is the development team. And so they are there to present to you as to, hey, here's what we've done so far. Here's where we're at. Here's what we think we're going to deliver by the end of the quarter. Any questions, comments, or concerns? And then they're also there to answer all of those in real time.
I love that. Thank you so much for jumping on this call today with me. I'm so excited. We really got to dive into like the team aspect, a little bit of the operations. Yeah, like I love it because I feel like so many people are missing, or I feel like when it comes to building a team, I don't think a lot of business owners are necessarily as open about sharing it. And I think it could help so many business owners by being able to learn some of this stuff from other business owners who are, building their team, because it takes a strong leadership. Like it takes eventually going through it to be able to have that smoother operations and stuff. And I think it's so insightful. And I love everything that we talked about today. If you had, if somebody wanted to connect with you after, where would you like to send them?
Shaun at gohighlevel.com is probably the best way to do it. SHAUN. The other thing I would just throw out there also, by the way, is like we made plenty of really stupid mistakes. And I'm certain that we are making stupid mistakes even right now. So like the big thing is like to also yet again understand, even we do skateboard model internally, right? So every time we want to make a change, we just want to make sure, again, back to culture and back for doing things for the right reasons. It doesn't mean you're doing the right things. So it matters if you're doing something for the right reason. If it turns out to be wrong or right, oftentimes it's hard to know until it blows up or it doesn't. And so just don't be afraid to make a lot of mistakes. I just think being transparent with your team on what you're trying to achieve, getting their feedback, and also sometimes just saying like, listen, I don't know if this is the right answer, but I want to try it. And worst case, we can do something else later.
Yeah. I love that. I think a lot of people, especially when they're building their team, it's like they're kind of scared. Like they're scared to make that first new hire. They don't know how to be a leader, and they're learning as they go. And I think that scares them in a few different ways.
I think a lot of times in life, so I was like asking my son, like, well, what's the definition of a hero? And the best definition I've ever gotten is it's someone that in the face of fear still moves forward. So it's not that, I think when you look at heroes on TV, it's as though they're fearless, but I think that's nonsense. I think what's heroic in life is when we see people sort of take on the thing that scares the living heck out of them, and they realize, and it's not like they ignore it or they're not willing to admit it. They're just like, I get it, I'm freaked out here, but you know what? I'm going to do this anyways because I think it's the right thing to do. And I think that's what people need to remember. It's like, we're all human. It's okay to be scared. There's nothing wrong about fear. The question is just, are you going to let that fear keep you from the greater future that you could get to if you're willing to confront that fear? And worst case scenario, you fail, but failure doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you tried something, it didn't work, and now you can try something else instead.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, Shaun. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Hiring on Demand show. We're a team of hiring experts, process consultants, marketing strategists, ads managers, and automation specialists, using our skills to help business owners find, hire, motivate, and retain their staff so they can put an end to the constant fires and get out of the field once and for all. Want to see what happens when we unleash our experts on your brand? Head over to hiringondemandsystem.com to book a free hiring strategy call today.